is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Missouri loses a defensive coordinator and they lose a basketball game. Hello and welcome into Mizzou That's Who, a podcast for Missouri Athletics here on KC Sports Network. I am one of your hosts, Tucker Franklin, joined as always by Gabe DeArmond and Maggie Johnson. Gabe, how you doing, sir?
What week is it? That's how I'm doing.
Yeah.
Every day it's something.
Every day is something indeed. Maggie, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, same. I mean, I miss football already, kind of. Actually, I kind of like the little bit of break, and but I wish it was like an all sports break, and you kind of have to go into just something else. It's not really like
detox.
Yeah, but you don't even get a detox. You just go to another sport. So, yeah, I'm still trying to just get used to that next sports thing. So, yeah, on to basketball we go, I guess.
Still got the withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah, I'm still having that. I'm just like expecting to watch more football. I mean, we get to watch some football tonight. It's just not
True.
Just a different Block M team. It's just not our Block M team.
If you squint hard enough, if your colors, if the colors on your TV are off,
exactly. If you have an old TV,
it might look like the Missouri football Tigers are playing. But we could just talk about the Cotton Bowl again. That'd be fine. I'm sure people would actually enjoy that more than what has transpired in Missouri athletics the past week or so. But the big news that we should probably hit off the top, and Gabe, I had made a TikTok video about a tweet that you had sent out about Blake Baker leaving, and I was actually in the Whataburger drive-thru. The Dr. Pepper shake is back, so I was like, I gotta go get a Dr. Pepper shake, and it's so good. And so I got it, and then I looked down at my phone to a notification of somebody sending me your tweet that said Blake Baker is leaving the Missouri Tigers program and going to the LSU Tigers. So that was where I was when I found out the news. Greatly disappointed. But I guess just kind of walk us through the timeline of events that led to this. Because for me, speaking personally, like I was a little shocked by it, but I guess I don't know if you can be really shocked if someone leaves Missouri to go to LSU. But especially 2 weeks after signing a contract extension, that took me a little bit by surprise.
Well, my timeline, first of all, did not include a Dr. Pepper shake. It would have been a better timeline had it included one. Friday night would have been way better. So just keep that in mind. If you ever want to DoorDash me, I think the closest Whataburger to me is Lee Summit. If you can get somebody to deliver me a Dr. Pepper shake from there, I'm in. So, no, look, really the timeline for this, I think, started a month to a month and a half. There are reports out of LSU. I mean, and I think I mentioned it to you guys. I don't know if on the show or in our extensive pre-show, post-show meetings, but, I'd kind of heard for a while, hey, if this LSU thing comes open and we think it's going to come open, keep an eye on Blake. I mean, the Tulane head coaching job was always there, but the LSU defensive coordinator job, I was told, like, hey, keep an eye on Blake. He's going to be targeted if this happens. And so it happened Wednesday morning, which I guess was 4 or 5 days after LSU season ended. Brian Kelly canned his whole defensive staff. And mid-December, before the Cotton Bowl, I had asked Eli before the contract extension stuff came out, hey, what's the timeline? What's the process on keeping your coordinators here? Because I know they're getting attention. And he said something at that time that kind of caught my ear. He said, I don't want guys to make lateral moves, but sometimes there are family situations and, things like that. And I would never want to hold anybody back. And and then he finished it by saying, I'm confident they'll both call plays in the bowl game. And I said, well, that's 9 days away. That doesn't really tell me a whole lot, right? So I'm thinking, family situation, Blake's wife played at LSU, he went to Tulane, like that tells me it's on his radar too. And then literally the next day, I think it was December 21st, extensions for both of them came out. And I'm not kidding, that morning I had 2 LSU people text me, hey, what are you hearing about Blake Baker's contract? Heard the buyout might have dropped today, which it did. I didn't know that at the time, but it did. And so 4 hours later, magically, we're new contracts for these guys, right? And we talked about it on here. Everybody just said, awesome, they're back. And you have to separate any of our worlds from there. A contract in our world means this is where we're working.
Right.
A contract in their world means this is what it costs you to get me out of this. And so all that did was change the price for LSU to hire him from $800,000 to $950,000, which we did not know at the time, but we now know. So I would say Friday afternoon, I started getting, I know a couple LSU people, hey, I'm kind of hearing Blake's name's come back up. I said, I'll check. This was actually probably Thursday. Send a text, said, hey, is there concern about this? There's always concern. His wife played there. Yes, there's always concern. So it's on the radar. Spent Thursday afternoon writing a Blake Baker is going and a Blake Baker is staying story. Was told by someone I believed that there would be resolution by Saturday. It became kind of apparent probably Friday afternoon that resolution was not going to end up working in Missouri's favor. And I think it was about 8:30 on Friday night, this is how I wanted to spend my Friday night. So it all worked out well. Dr. Pepper shakeless, writing and reading messages about Blake Baker turning down a contract, or not turning down, signing a contract that made him the 5th highest paid assistant in college football, and then issuing it for one that made him by nearly 25% the highest paid assistant coach in America. Which, like, I understand both sides. If you're a Missouri fan, I understand why this bothers you. I don't maybe understand why you would tweet bad words at him, but that is not a thing I would do in my life. But if that's how you handle it, okay. I understand why you're upset about it. I also understand why Blake took the LSU job. I could argue Missouri defensive coordinator for 1 year for next year is a better job than LSU defense. I can make that argument. I don't think it's a bad argument. And I still kind of understand why he took it.
Do you, I guess I kind of have a few thoughts on it. I guess my first thought is, why do coaches continue to do things like what Coach Mike Anderson did, in what Blake Baker did, in saying things that they don't necessarily know that they'll be able to back up? Because it's kind of like you said, like if this has been kind of maybe in the talks, like there's probably a bird that's been speaking to him behind the scenes, like this job might come up. Why
the bird might be named Jimmy Sexton?
Right, exactly. Why even tweet, I'm not leaving? Why even do those things?
Yes.
And those are the little things. Yeah, those are the little things I think to Mizzou fans, just like, don't say it. Don't say it. And say what the thing, like with Mike Anderson, is it's like, and for those of you listening, if you're probably not a new fan, but like Mike Anderson, like pretty soon before he left to go to Arkansas, said, I want to be at Mizzou. I want to retire here. Left pretty quickly after to go to Arkansas. Why even say those things? If it's not where if you don't actually, if you would leave to go somewhere else, it's just like, don't say that. And I think that's the problem a lot of fans have. And you just kind of feel as a fan taken advantage of. You just kind of feel a little bit like, we love this place so much. And it's okay if you don't want it. If it's not your dream destination, that's okay. I think most people expected Baker to leave next year. I don't think anybody doubted he was going to. But I just think it's saying things like that. You're just like, what?
The tweet to me was what made this bad. Because let's say Kirby, and I have no indication this is going to happen. Let's say Kirby Moore takes a different job tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Let's say he's the Dallas Cowboys offensive, whatever he might be. All Kirby did is sign a deal.
Yeah.
He didn't double down. He hasn't tweeted. He hasn't said, I never considered going anywhere else. So that's the part that makes it look worse. It doesn't materially change anything about it. But it does. I mean, I think I said on this podcast, I know I said on ours, that Wolf of Wall Street gif, like, it's hard to overcome going back on that. But Blake did it, I think part of the reason, and this isn't the case with Blake, but it was the case with Mike, it's the case with Nick Saban, it was the case with Roy Williams. Tucker, can I curse on this podcast?
Absolutely.
Because the greatest quote in coaching history is where Roy Williams don't give a shit about North Carolina on like literally like 3 days later. Amazing.
Yeah.
But part of the reason is they get tired of us asking.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a parent and it's nonstop, can we do this tomorrow? Can we do this tomorrow? Eventually you change from we'll see to sure, we'll do it tomorrow. You may not mean it. You may not do it tomorrow, but you just want your kid to shut. They just want us to shut and quit asking. But nobody asked Blake that. I've talked to Blake 3 times, I think, in my whole life. Nobody's asking him that. So he didn't have to do that. And that made it worse than it otherwise would have been. But also, again, like I said at the beginning, we have to stop comparing the world these guys live in to the world we live in.
Right.
It's just not the same. And I know, I get a little of it in my job. I know it's really, really hard. My job is your passion. It is a fan's escape from reality. Those 4 hours on Saturday, those 2 basketball games, recruiting, whatever it is. This is your diversion from your real life. And you can't, I can't ever see it the same way you do. I just can't because it's my job. And so my diversion is the 4 hours on Sunday, right? When I watch the Chiefs, I can see that the way you guys see Missouri maybe, and sometimes do to a fault. But these coaches, I remember way back when Dave Christensen was a Wyoming coach, and his name was coming up for the Kansas job. And I asked somebody that knew Dave pretty well, I said, he can't take that job, can he? And he said, I'll give you 2 million reasons he can take that job. It's just a paycheck, guys. It's just a place. Yeah. And yes, they love it while they're here. Right now, Eli Drinkwitz loves the University of Missouri and sells it and all that. And if he ever is the coach somewhere else, he will love that place and sell it. He will never talk about Missouri again. I know it's hard to understand, but it's true.
Yeah. I just looked while we were talking about it. Tweet's still up from Blake Baker. He's doubled down. Yeah, I mean, just don't delete at this point. But 3-year deal for Blake Baker, $2.5 million per year. That's a lot of money for a defensive coordinator, for a guy going to LSU, which, listen, I'm sure, as you mentioned, Gabe, the family does have a lot to do with it. I'm sure his wife was like, if you're going to make, if all's even and you're going to go to LSU, I'd rather probably be in LSU than a club.
How many people make a decision like that without talking to their wife or asking their kids?
Right.
0. And if you say you do, you're either a liar or you are just a terrible person.
But the funny thing is that he was talking about how one of the reasons that he wanted to stay was Columbia and his family's happiness in Columbia and the unfinished business. So
I totally understand, but what could Blake have said to that question? The Missouri fans would go, "Oh yeah, that's cool, I get it." I don't know what the answer he should give there.
Yeah. I think one of the crazy things though about the amount of pay is that our defense wasn't even a top 30 defense, right? That's one of the wildest things about his contract to me, and him being the top paid coordinator in the entire country is as good as our defense was. I mean, looking at all these players that are declaring for the draft and are probably going to get drafted or at least be undrafted free agents, is that with all those players, I mean, our defense probably should have been a little bit better.
I think the main reason it wasn't actually was LSU's quarterback. I mean, I think those numbers look a lot different.
Oh, yeah, that game probably skewed it a little bit.
But, I don't know. I totally lost my train of thought.
It's okay. It's a good segue because we do need to take a break. And we've got other things to talk about in this kind of the recruiting implications for this, mixed up with some potential candidates. And I guess we'll talk about basketball, but we'll push that further down the road as we're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Now, one of my first reactions to seeing Blake Baker leaving was me thinking, oh, they just landed a bunch of transfer guys on the defensive side of the football, and how does that impact it? Now, I know there's a lot of different things. They also have the number 1 defensive recruit in the country coming in from the high school ranks. He's already signed a national letter of intent. So I think that contractually binds him to that. Who knows what that means anymore? But so that was my reaction of like, how much does that actually impact, transfers and commitments from on the defensive side of the ball? Because when you see some coaching changes, sometimes you see guys decommit and everything like that. They did land, I think Sterling Webb is his name, from New Mexico State, St. Louis native. He pretty good guy. I think he had 4.5 sacks last year. But Gabe, what is like the implications, how that impacts the recruiting side of things heading into next year?
The only guy I could see it potentially having an impact on is Corey Flagg, who's a linebacker from Miami, who Baker was the tie. He was recruited by Baker at Miami. And this is where you get into the philosophical conversations of college football and all the, my problem with this is the hypocrisy of coaches. Well, these kids just don't want to stick it out. They're enter the portal, blah, blah. All they're doing is what you do every single year. If you can leave, they should be able to leave. This is why they can leave. And this is why nobody, if Corey Flagg decides he wants to go somewhere else, nobody should hold that against him. This was kind of the reason he came. Right. Now, that said, the worst part of this is that the transfer portal closed on January 2nd. And Blake Baker took this job on January 5th. So now, if there is a defensive player who is at Missouri, now transfers like Corey Flagg hasn't taken a class at Missouri yet. He has another week. If he decides I don't want to come, and I'm only using him because I'm not saying
right,
he's the example. If he decides, hey, no, I'm not going to go to Missouri, as long as he hasn't officially withdrawn from the portal, I think he's fine. Like, he hasn't attended a class here. He could theoretically go somewhere else. But take a kid like, I don't know, who's somebody who's coming back on defense next. Tristan Newsom is coming back on defense next year for Missouri. Well, his defensive coordinator's gone. But he now can't enter the portal until April 15th. He's here. He's just here. He can't go anywhere. Like Williams, Winery, and these guys, they don't get me wrong. If they came to Missouri and said, I want out of my letter of intent, Missouri.
Right.
Now, that doesn't usually happen, and I don't want to incite panic. Kids come more for head coaches, for position coaches, and frankly, at this point, for money. So the money's still there. Blake Baker wasn't writing those checks, so I think the bigger potential impact could be if any other defensive coaches were to go with Blake to LSU. My initial reaction was that wouldn't happen because it's just generally accepted. Hey, you're not going to go to be on his staff there unless you're getting a promotion, right? And if you're the linebackers coach and co-defensive coordinator here, he's not the head coach there. He can't make you the DC.
Right.
So it's not a promotion. Now, that said, look, Eli's got to go hire a defensive coordinator. If he hires somebody other than the guy who was his co-defensive coordinator last year, it would not be out of the question for DJ Smith to look and go, well, I've hit my ceiling here. I can't, where else can I go? It's the Eric Bieniemy thing.
Yeah.
There's nowhere for me to go here. I have to go somewhere else. And look, that could happen. There's talk out of Baton Rouge that Blake is really trying to get Kevin Peoples, Missouri's defensive ends coach, down there. I guess the comparison I've made a lot in the last few years is you really like eating at Taco Bell until you work at Taco Bell. The more you know about college sports and the closer you are to it, the less any of this stuff can possibly surprise you. There is no loyalty, honor, things like that. And I'm not saying they're bad people. They're not bad people. Look, I would go, if somebody paid me more money to go cover the University of Arkansas, I would probably do it, except for the fact Arkansas fans all probably hate me and it wouldn't be very fun. But you get the point. I mean,
I hate all
we'll
of
just
us.
took another job. Right.
I will say, I feel like doing something like that, going against somebody and I'm not saying that, I know there were some people saying that Drink saved Baker's career, and I'm not gonna go into all that because I think that's kind of a weird statement. But I would say it would be kind of weird because I think that Baker and Drink formed a pretty good friendship while he was there, based on the things that you've seen. So I think it would be kind of weird to kind of step on that, especially based on what I've what I read from you on Power Mizzou and what I've seen, I think it would be kind of weird to be like, now I'm going to step on your toes and try to take all your coaches. I'm not saying that it's not possible.
Yeah.
I think it would be.
Yeah, it would. It would be a little awkward, I think. And look, I know things like that costing people in coaching friendships. Absolutely. It happens. Flip side is these guys all kind of play the same game. I mean, I thought it was really noticeable earlier this week when Mekhi Wingo said he was entering the NFL draft. I don't know if you guys saw how many Missouri players posted that on their social media and congratulated Mekhi and, did the same thing for Trajan Jeffcoat. Like, they're all in the game and they view it differently than we do. And again, like, kid like Darius Robinson, yeah, he came to love Missouri and all that, and he never left. But I know I've talked to him about it. He also didn't hold it against Trajan Jeffcoat that Trajan did. So it would be weird. It would be awkward. But again, I don't have a lot of faith in
the
in
humanity of
anybody doing anything other than what's good for me tomorrow.
Yeah. I was also shocked that Trajan and Mekhi both put Mizzou in their NFL draft declaration photos, because a lot of times you don't see
started to do that more. I've noticed that with a lot of different guys. Like, they've started to do it a lot more.
Can you imagine like Sean East's NBA draft declaration? Oh, it's gonna have like 7 uniforms in that thing, man.
DJ Hughes is gonna be insane.
Oh my god, DJ Hughes just like the
JT Daniels
photo.
If JT Daniels was playing, like, I mean, he retired, but I mean that's like 12.
He had to.
So I don't know.
He said he medically retired. I think he retired because he was bad at football.
He gets Social Security in a year and a half. So.
That is true. But I think that when you start to look ahead, you already mentioned the DJ. I think I can't remember who it was, tweeted about a Missouri defensive player, tweeting about wanting him to be elevated as defensive coordinator.
They always do.
Correct.
The players always want that.
You look at what happened at Boise State. The players all supported the interim coach, who I can't remember. I think it was their defensive coordinator too, to be the head coach, and he ended up being the head coach. Right? Like, that's always going to happen. But when it comes to potential candidates, I mean, I don't really know a bunch of guys' names. I know the Iowa defensive coordinator was thrown out there, but you don't really know a bunch of candidates' names thrown out there already for just a vacant college football coordinator.
Right. Here's the thing. Like, when it's a head coach, I can give you a list that, like, here's guys that makes it. When Missouri was looking for an athletic director, after they hired Desiree, somebody asked me, like, how was your list at the beginning so accurate? I said, just common sense. I was like, just look at kind of it's not hard if you follow this stuff. You can figure out who's going to make sense. Defensive coordinator is tougher. I mean, like, if I just said to you, how many defensive coordinators can you name? I don't 6. Without doing research, maybe. Like, if I said to you, who is Tulane's defensive coordinator? Do you have any idea?
No shot.
No, none of us do, right? I had to look it up. So, I mean, my point is, whoever Eli hires, it may be one of these. It may be like Jim Leonard or one of these names that, hey, we all know. It also may be a guy like Kirby Moore, who I legitimately had to look up who Kirby Moore was when it was announced he was Missouri. I didn't know. I'd never heard his name. Yeah. I didn't know Kellen Moore had it. So I had to look him up. And look, guy did a damn good job. So I don't know. Maybe he'll hire some guy maybe he'll hire Portland State's linebackers coach as the next defensive coordinator, and Missouri fans will freak out, and none of us will have any idea if it's a good or a bad hire.
Yeah. Do you think if that happened, that would be more likely to push one like Peoples or Smith out the door, or do you think that?
Well, I mean, those guys they have to be candidates for this job, I think. And if DJ Smith, if Turing thinks he's the right guy, I will awesome do it. Cool. Or if he thinks Kevin Peoples is. But this is where his job is tough. yes, there's next year to think about, but there's also a program to think about. And if he doesn't think those guys are the best candidate to be his long-term defensive coordinator or as long-term as, any guys are in college football, then he has to risk hiring somebody else and letting them walk, because you don't give a guy a job. You can't hire a defensive coordinator because you're afraid he will no longer be your defensive ends coach if you don't. He's got it. This is why he's making, as of January 15th, $9 million a year. He's got to decide things like this.
Well, for a while, I thought one of the pros to keeping them around was, that they knew the system and the recruits and the players. Yeah. But as time's kind of going on, we're seeing more of these players, that not maybe a few of them were staying around, but it's turning out we're having quite a bit of turnover on the defense already. Yeah.
Right. There are 6 starters going on defense and a good coordinator. Like, people might forget when Blake came in here, he learned Steve Wilkes' stuff. He didn't try to teach them Blake Baker stuff. And over time, he adapted it and added more to it, and it became his. But you cannot come in and say, no, this is what I do, and you guys have to do. Like, you're going to have to come in and kind of find out what they did and tweak that a little bit. Because you can't go into you can't hire a guy who runs a 3-4 because your team's not built for that. And next year's too important to just say, yeah, screw it, we're changing the one I always remember was when Bill Callahan took over Nebraska, which had been this, triple option wishbone. And he's like, well, this isn't what I get. And man, Nebraska was rough for those first couple of years because he was trying to do something that his roster just couldn't do. Mm-hmm. Got to fit the system around what's here rather than fitting what's here around the system.
Portland State doesn't have a linebackers coach, actually. They have a nickelbacks. Okay. They have a nickelbacks coach, which I don't know.
What's that guy's name?
His name is Robbie Hawk, Hauck.
I like him. I'll probably put him on my hot board.
And he's a nickelbacks and special teams assistant. First year at Portland State, out of Montana. So, hey, powerhouse program in the FCS.
Okay. Yeah.
Got a good background. A star defensive back for the Montana Grizzlies for 5 years. A 5-year FCS kid. Golly, that he's good on special teams. That's what
he talks ball, and yeah,
that's who we got our eyes on. No, I do think it's interesting to kind of look at everything that goes on with the defensive coordinator search. I think I trust Eli Drinkwitz when it comes to the hiring of this process, the hiring of Blake Baker, the promotion of Blake Baker. And you talk about Kirby Moore, and then the position hire too of the offensive line coach. Like, he's nailed the position hires that he has had to do, and the coordinator hiring that he's had to do. So I'm fine with him trying to find another guy. I don't think there's any
better be fine with him. He's making a whole lot of money to do it.
That is a great point and a great segue into when we recorded the podcast last week. I think as soon as we got done recording, that's when we
tried to wait long enough, but we couldn't.
We did. We tried to wait, but we couldn't do it. Missouri announced the extension of Eli Drinkwitz, and Gabe, you had tweeted out, I believe earlier on Monday, the terms of those contracts. You had finally got your hands on those.
Yeah, year 1 and 2, $9 million. Year 2 and 3, 9.25, and year 3, 9.5. And again, we don't live in their world, guys. No. I understand it is a lot of money for a football coach. It's about what Eli's earned. If you look at the SEC, he is now right in line with Mark Stoops, Josh Heupel, Lane Kiffin. I think we would all say that's probably his stratosphere in this league right now. He's not Brian Kelly, Kirby Smart, or Nick Saban, and those guys are making more. But he's done more than most of the rest of them, and he's making more than they are. So, and this is, I know a lot of people will say, but they just did this last year. Why do you have to do it again? Well, because if you tell him, no, go do it again at 6.25, and he does it again, then he's going to remember you didn't reward him for doing it. And when somebody else gives him $10 million, he's going to take it instead of your, so this is how this business works. And look, they're all 1-year contracts. I mean, every coach in the SEC is 1 year away from being on the hot seat, except probably Nick Saban and Kirby Smart would probably get 2. Yeah. But I mean, we live in a world where Bill Belichick might be fired by the time people listen to this, right? You don't get many down years. And so he got a new deal. I think deserves a new deal. And why does any of us care? It's not our money. I mean, I don't know about you guys. It's not my money. Like, that's what always fascinates me about this. Is it your money? Did they call you to donate to? If they did, cool. Like, if you're one of the guys that they called and said, man, we got to give Eli a $2.5 million raise. How much can you give us? Okay. You can have input. If you are not one of those, why do you care?
Y'all know I'm not answering those 573 phone calls, so.
It's good. It's a good motto to live by. No, I think that contract, when it came down, I do think, Gabe, I saw a lot of people with the same response. Just like, wait, didn't this just happen last year? Did it technically extend him by a year? Is that what it was? It added in
last year, extended him by 2, and this year extended him by another.
Okay.
So he's under contract through the 2028 season.
That doesn't seem like a real year.
Which, again, we understand. He is under contract today.
Yeah.
Like, somebody wants to come up with $5 million. They could hire him today if they want to.
Did the buyout change at all from the contract that he signed from last year to this year?
I can't remember what it was last year. It's I think it's $5 million if he walks away for the first 2 years, which is, that's a decent amount. Missouri's side of it is they owe him 75%. Because if you are a team that wants to hire Eli, say after next season, well, you got to pay to fire your guy, and you're going to owe him some money. May not be $77 million, but you're going to owe him something. Then you're going to have to pay $5 million just for the right to hire Eli. Yeah. And then you're going to have to pay him at least 10 to hire him because he's already making 9. So, somebody's going to really have to want to hire him to hire.
Well, that's the wild thing about LSU's defensive coordinator position too, because they're paying the buyout for their DC, they're paying the buyout for our DC, and then they're paying $2.5 million for his new contract.
Their athletic director is Scott Woodward, who used to be at Texas A&M. He's the guy that signed the $77 million Jimbo deal. He paid Kim Mulkey an ungodly amount of money to leave Baylor and go to LSU. He paid Brian Kelly this is what Scott Woodward does. He says, this is the guy I want. And I have driven around the state of Louisiana and collected every dollar I can find, and here it is. To take my job. Oh, it's not enough? I will go find more. This is how he operates. There is no, it's the limit does not exist.
He shakes the calculus. How does that guy keep getting jobs? Do you think that at one point, it's going to fall apart at LSU, right? In theory, right? It'll fall apart.
Well, I mean, it'll be interesting. Like, Brian Kelly probably needs to win next year.
That's a
pretty good amount, right?
Louisiana's a much poorer state than Texas and Texas A&M. I'll tell you that. There's got to be a lot more money at Texas A&M than there is at LSU. There's got to be.
There appears to be a whole lot of money at LSU. I mean, I don't know, but there appears to be unlimited money.
I'm not sure that there is, but there can't be as much money at Texas or at LSU that there is as Texas A&M.
A&M's like the richest program, though. I'm pretty sure.
What's that?
A&M like the richest program, though.
It's up there with Ohio State and Texas, yeah.
Well, and Texas A&M is one of the largest schools, like alumni-wise and population-wise or enrollment-wise in the entire country.
And yet, LSU wins things. And A&M
they do win a lot. They do win a lot. That is very true.
Texas A&M, it does not. The LSU thing is really interesting because Brian Kelly didn't win his obligatory second or national championship in his second season that every LSU coach has to win, and he didn't get that done. So it's clock's ticking for old Brian Kelly. How many more TikToks can he do before they're fed up with him over there?
Well, the weird thing is, I mean, he came in and he overachieved in year 1. He won the West.
Yeah.
And I think that set up they were this preseason sexy national title pick. And you are coaching at a place where literally every coach in the last 20 years has won a national title. Les Miles won a national title there. Ed Orgeron won a national title there. If you don't win a national title there, I don't think that says great things about you.
You must suck. That's what Gabe is trying to say.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, I said it for you. But you know who doesn't suck is DraftKings Sportsbook. They're an official sports betting partner of the NFL playoffs. and they're bringing you an offer that'll make the playoffs electrifying. New customers can bet $5 on any game and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Looking at the Chiefs game, favored by 4 points against those Miami Dolphins. Over-under set at 44 points. And here's what you got to do. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code KCSN. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code KCSN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. All right, last football note that I have written down. I guess we didn't talk about the Kirby Moore's extension. You also have terms for that too, Gabe. But I did want to talk about Missouri landing. I mentioned a little bit earlier they had a daily double in terms of transfers. They got Nate Noel, a running back I really like out of App State. I think that's a really good ad for them. They're going to be a Sun Belt heavy backfield there in Columbia this next season. But a couple good transfers that they landed on. I believe that was Sunday. When they landed those guys. And so I guess let's first start with Kirby Moore's. What did you get details-wise on his contract?
Yeah, he got a raise from $850,000 last year to $1.2 million this year, $1.3 next year. Could make an extra couple $100,000 in incentives. Gets a $30,000 signing bonus, which I found to be a kind of a random number. I'm sure there's some reason behind that, but good for him. Might have had to make a payment on a house or car or kids in private school. I don't know.
Called in a favor, so they did.
Right. Like, I feel like
credit card payments. I need a minute.
Yeah. I feel like if you're going to make $1.2 million, that $30,000 is kind of like, I don't know, man. Do you guys take a trip or something?
Stafford loans.
Just trying to pay off student loans.
But, puts him, it doesn't put him in Blake Baker territory, but right. Like, again, remember 2 years ago, this dude was the offensive coordinator at Fresno State making, I'm going to guess, I don't know, $300,000, something like that. And now he's making 1.2. So, I was like, well, we should have paid him more. Well, why? You didn't have to. He signed the contract. You just, here's more. We know we don't have to, but here's more. He
signed the contract. He gets almost his whole offense back. I mean, besides Schrader, but he gets
getting some pretty damn good running backs. He gets
great running backs to come back. He has his entire wide receiver core. He gets some new, pretty good wide receivers joining him. Good offensive linemen coming back. But he really just loses, I think, Javon Foster,
Xavier Delgado.
Xavier Delgado. But he's getting some sophomores that I think are going to be pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be sitting pretty good for, if he's not around next year, which
right. And again, hey, if Kirby gets a job offer, then whatever, just go back and do it again. Like I talked to people, that would know, and when LSU came in, Missouri was willing to up that offer that Blake had just signed 2 weeks ago. He'd have paid him more, So I guess I just want to be a coach that's good enough to end up getting fired. That's what I want. Because that's really the best job.
Good enough to sign the deal, but not good enough
sign
to
the deal. Suck thereafter. Give me the buyout. You'll never hear from me again.
Yeah, being good enough to be a backup quarterback. Blaine Gabbert playing yesterday was probably dang it. This sucks. I just want to be good enough to stand on the sidelines. Why was it to play today?
That's what I would think. I feel like they don't feel that way, but I would feel it.
Yeah, probably not. But yeah, Drew Lock crying a couple weeks ago when he got to play. Right. I'm
that's pretty cool. Yeah,
that was cool. That was a great interview, but I would have been man.
My favorite conversation I've had with an ex-NFL player, right? Nick Leckie. He played for the Saints. He was a backup offensive lineman for them when they won the Super Bowl. And he was asking me, he's like, Tucker, if you were in the NFL, what would you want to be? And I was like, honestly, I'd want to be a healthy scratch every week. Go through, do your practices. You still get the game check. But like when the games come about, you're out there on the sideline in street clothes. And he said there was a couple of years, I think in Arizona, or maybe it was sometime when he was in New Orleans, where that did have like he was the healthy scratch every week, and he knew by like Friday if he was going to dress or not. And so like if he knew on Friday, like, nope, you're not dressing, he said, awesome. And then that whole week, and he gets to travel with them. He gets to be with the team, gets to do all the fun stuff. But then like when the game comes around, he's just hanging out. And I was like, that sounds like the best life ever.
Because if you're the backup quarterback, there is a danger that all of a sudden that dude got hurt and you got to go in on the 2-yard line and win a playoff game.
Yeah, you actually have
to go.
You actually have to be paying attention. Like Sam Horn, you always see him like on the side, like he's always paying attention, making sure. Yeah. If you're a healthy scratch, you can kind of just be chilling, or being those people on the bench that are like hyping people up, jumping on the bench. That's a good place.
Be the Ben Sternberg. That's who you want.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hope Ben's doing all right. Hope he's doing well. That's enough basketball talk. That's a nice podcast. Sorry, I had to get that joke in. I had a train of thought. I had a process that I was going to talk about, and I cannot remember for the life of me what I was going to parlay that into. So I guess it means we have to talk about basketball. They lost against Georgia, the season opener or SEC conference opener against Georgia. They play Kentucky next week. Gabe, I guess, did you learn anything about this basketball team that you didn't already know when they played Georgia?
If you're not going to beat Georgia at home, where are the games you look at and say, well, yeah, that's a win. And I'm not saying they won't. They'll win some. They'll pick up some wins along the way. But I'm just saying the only game you look at and say, well, we should for sure win that is Vanderbilt. Other than that, everybody else in the SEC is in the net rankings, and Ken Palm is better than Missouri. Missouri's 13th out of 14, and every game's kind of the same. They get down 12-18, and then suddenly decide, oh, hey, what if we did better? What if we did that for a while? How would that go? And they get back close. They actually took the lead against Georgia. Took a 2-point lead, gave up a 9-0 run. 8 for 20 on layups. Continue to have the, I'm using air quotes, bad luck of every team shooting 97% against them. If you do it every game, it's not bad luck. It's who you are. They're just, they're just not good enough, guys. They need more talent. The answers aren't on this roster. Like I've seen a lot of, we'll play this guy, play Trent Pierce more. He's played Trent Pierce. Trent Pierce hasn't earned more playing time when he's been out there. Jordan Butler hasn't really earned more playing time when he's been. And I understand people that say, well, Noah Carter's not getting it done. Nick Honor's not getting it done. But neither are the guys that are coming in for them. Right. More Jesus Carolero, that's not going to fix this. More, and I'm not saying that as more anybody. Pick a guy.
For sure.
They just don't have the guys. I think he misevaluated some of the transfers. I think he counted on some of the guys coming back, making a bigger leap than they have made. And then I think there have been a couple injuries that hurt him. And it all adds up to a team that at this point, the NIT seems like a stretch to me. Because I don't know how you get above 500.
Yeah.
I think Aiden Shaw probably had one of his better games. Shooting-wise, he actually shot the ball, went 7 for 8, had 14 points and 6 rebounds. Like, it's kind of what we've been asking from him. But...
And still not enough?
No, and I can't say his last name. I'm so bad at this. Carolero. He had 3 points, and those were the only 3 points off the bench. The only 3 points off the bench. That's
yeah. I mean,
and those 3 points, I think they came. Were they in the?
It was in the second half.
Okay, it was in the second half.
It was in the second half. I remember the angle. It was a very pretty shot. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a nice shot. I was watching it too. But we did the same thing that we have done for the past 5 or 6 years. We went on a 7-minute and 3-second scoring drought. 7 minutes and 3 second scoring drought. The score was 19-18, I think. Georgia with 12 minutes and 38 seconds left in the first half.
18.
Yep, it was 35-21. Tamara Bates made a shot to make it 35-21. And then we went down. We immediately gave up a 3 too. And so then, it was 38-21. And then we came back. We went on a great run to go up to, like you said, game. And then it was just like, it was almost like that was enough.
They're good enough. They're good enough to play about 25 minutes a game.
Yeah.
That's just not enough.
And if you don't have a bench that can score, I mean, you just have to have depth, and we just don't have any. I mean, we don't have any depth at all. Like, Vanover doesn't do anything. I mean, he plays 6 minutes. He plays 6 minutes. It's like
they have depth. They just don't have
good
quality depth, right?
We don't have good depth. Yes,
We've got guys who can go out there.
Like every year going into the offseason, people will be like, well, we've got 9 guys that play wide receiver. Well, everybody has 9 guys that play wide receiver, but 7 of yours have never caught a pass. So you can't say you have depth. You can say you have bodies. Missouri has bodies in basketball, but they don't have depth. You're 100% right about that.
Right. And not that I don't think that we have like potential. Like, I do think all 3 of our freshmen have great potential.
Just not this year.
Exactly.
And like down years are not fun, but there's going to be a down year.
And I think it's such a bummer because, last year I think it was one of those things where we were in completely opposite places where we were all ready for football season to be over, and get to basketball, and basketball was exciting, and we were all like, yes, let's do these podcasts for basketball season. And now we're just like, oh, it's such a bummer. But I think I am at this like realization stage where it's like, I'm ready already for next year's basketball season because I do have like hope and faith in what they are building. Like, I do believe in what Gates and CY are like building. It's just this like weird buffer year where we just kind of have to like have that faith and just like put that faith. You just have to get through it and just keep supporting them and keep watching them and just like don't tweet bad things at them. I mean, I
have to watch.
Oh, I mean, you don't have to. You don't have to, but
I haven't.
Yeah.
Probably something I shouldn't admit, but like, there's a reason Gabe and Maggie are doing all the basketball talking.
Look, I used my 2.5 hours at Mizzou Arena to come up with what I thought was a very good defensive coordinator on Saturday.
Or Gabe came at you with that, so.
Yeah, it's perfect. That's what we need during Missouri basketball.
There's lots of good Mizzou podcasts that you can listen to all of them break down the basketball stuff for you. We're gonna do our best, but
I'll tell you what,
this isn't basketball podcast, but there are probably some
there are a lot of really good ones.
Jared Sutton is gonna have a podcast on this channel this week breaking down Missouri basketball. I don't need to say anything. Jared knows way more about basketball than I do.
So here's the thing too. I've covered seasons that are far worse than this. And you know what you find out? Like, if you really want to spend your time breaking it down and doing it, like, you can, but they're not paying attention. So, like, you're really just doing it because you feel like you should do it.
Missouri Travels.
I'd rather spend 35 minutes talking about defensive coordinator contract, personally.
Did a really good job at that. Missouri travels to Rupp Arena tomorrow. Or today, whenever you're listening to this podcast.
Today, they left Monday after. When we started this podcast, I checked. I said, "Hey, are you guys going to be able to get out?" And they were at the airport de-icing the plane.
Sweet, so they're there.
That was there yet here in St. Louis. So.
It's coming. Well, it might actually all run out before it gets to St. Louis. But I think they've projected like 20 inches of snow in Kansas City for like this week. Yeah, nuts. I'm not leaving my house for a week if that happens.
Better go buy some bread and milk, man.
No, gotta get the winter soup recipe. Bread, milk, and eggs. But they take on Kentucky on Tuesday, 6 p.m. Then they will host South Carolina on Saturday the 13th. That's a 2:30 p.m. tip-off. Any thoughts on anything else Missouri athletics wise? I think wrestling's off to a good start.
Like number 2, I think. Still, they're good.
Great,
real good.
Powerhouse. Gymnastics, I think, won a quad or whatever they call those things.
Highest ranking in school history.
They're good.
I don't know what it is, but I did see a tweet that it's the highest one in school history.
Humming. Missouri athletics are humming. Let me go to mutigers.com to see what headlines scroll across so I can sound like
Friday Night Heights is what it's called. You can always watch it on SEC.
Oh, really?
Honestly, I feel like
it's fun. It's actually really fun to watch.
You to turn this off.
Yeah, we're talking to ourselves.
Like if they want to know about what Missouri gymnastics is ranked, I promise they already know. They don't need us to.
Number 3, by the way. Program best number 3 in the national standings.
Jocelyn Moore, Sienna Schreiber. They're good. They're good. They're fun. Friday Night Heights.
That's a sick name. Half the battle is branding, and they won that half of the battle. Yeah, nothing else that's really sticking out to me. The tennis is about to start in Phoenix, but you don't need to know any of that. We appreciate everyone who is still listening. Wow, you guys are incredible. We really appreciate you still listening to the podcast. We'll be back next week with hopefully some more football to talk about. I hope we have some more football.
We'll have a DC, right?
Hopefully. Who knows how long that hiring.
I would think by the time we do this again, yeah.
Yes. I'm going to do so much research on it so we don't have to spend any time talking about basketball. That's the goal. We'll be back next week with another podcast. So until then, that's Gabe DeArmond and Maggie Johnson. I'm Tucker Franklin. We'll talk to you guys later.